Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about hard things, whether it's comfortable or not. We think those conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So saddle up, enjoy the fireside chat.
I feel like one of these days we need to have like a little campfire animation in the middle whenever we use that intro.
I can
It
do
feels
that.
disingenuous to not have a campfire.
Have a fireside chat without a fire.
Exactly. Or maybe in the background. I don't know.
How was
We're
your
rich and
week?
famous and could do green screening all the time. It was.
There
It,
you go.
it was okay. It's busy. It was very busy.
Good. Because it isn't for everybody this time of year up there in the frozen wastelands that you live in.
Yeah, it's
So
looking
not
like we might be
everybody
busy.
gets to be busy.
Yeah,
on
we'll be busy
Halloween.
all the way till Christmas and possibly beyond. So that's a thing.
So for those of you who don't know, you and I have been doing this show for 2 years as of tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We
Halloween
began
night.
Halloween exactly 2 years ago, or is it 3 years ago? It is only 2 years,
2
right?
years.
Yeah. We have been arguing on air for anybody to listen to for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still talking to one another off air.
Occasionally.
I'd say that's a pretty good accomplishment, if you ask me.
I agree, yeah. I'd almost go so
I
far as
don't-
to say probably talk to each other more often as a rule. Recently, we've both been super busy, so we haven't. But as a rule, we talk to each other more now than we did 2 years ago.
I kind of think that's actually really incredible.
Who knew that having thought-provoking and introspective conversation with somebody on a regular basis would breed familiarity and potentially a deeper connection? What a concept.
And the fact of the matter is, I don't think either of us have convinced each other of the opposing view. We've sort of
really no.
accepted the fact that we're different.
Yeah. To be clear, not agreeing to disagree.
Right.
But a measure of acceptance. And I would say that while we haven't convinced each other or like pulled the other person to a different point of view, I think we understand each other a lot better than we did.
I understand you're wrong better, and you understand I'm wrong better. I think that's a win.
I don't quite mean like that, but yeah.
You see how wrong I am, and I see how wrong you are, just a little bit clearer after having 2 years worth of discussion on YouTube.
Yeah.
Why being a billionaire is apparently wrong.
Yeah.
And
this is a call forward. Later in the conversation, we're going to call forward to that understanding each other better bit. I don't want to interrupt the flow now. So
for those of you who are tuning in, this is our anniversary show. We've been doing this for exactly 2 years as of Halloween night.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of the show is I'm old and conservative, and you are young and much more not conservative.
Young-ish, but yes.
I called you liberal, and you said you're not a liberal. You are a...
progressive. I would call myself a progressive if I had to put a label on it. Right. I don't like labels, but that's the best one.
Yeah. And how we would have these hard discussions, and at the end of the phone call, we would say to each other, you know, hey, son, I'll talk to you later. I love you. And you'd say, hey, Dad, love you too. And realize that that all the disagreement in the world was okay. And we said, hey, well, why don't we share the disagreements with others and show others how they can disagree and still be friends and hopefully even family if they were family to start with. They probably don't want to become family if they weren't family, but you never know.
Maybe it's all just an elaborate plot to air our dirty laundry online as a form of...
No, please God, no. No, let's not do that. So for 2 years we've been doing this. And last week was one of the more heated arguments.
Yeah. Passionate.
You may or may not have used the F word a couple times and let loose with a few expletives. And it, at the end of the day, and I said to your mom, as she had walked out in the middle of the episode, she walked out of the house, had to go for a walk. And I said, you know, it's okay because we still love each other. And that's the whole point of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Is we're going to disagree. And that is okay, really, honestly and truly.
Yeah.
So if you want to support the arguments between the Will and Dave, the participants of the Will and Dave show, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave show, where for the mere price of a cup of coffee in the U.S., for the price of a small house in Canada, you can support the show.
You say that. Our housing market's not doing great.
I hear that. What's up with your housing market up there?
It's inflation. It's all going up, 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 up.
Well, yeah, but your dollar is going down, 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 down. So therefore, our dollar will buy a small house where our coffee here. So, you know. And the sponsors of this show each week are, you take one, Will?
Stitched by Susan. I love talking about Stitched by Susan. It's my favorite sponsor to talk about, partially because I don't have to memorize the phone number to talk about them. Anyways, Stitched by Susan is we're going to call it a multimedia group today, run by the eponymous Susan. Everything that you could want to know or learn about or talk about involving quilting is probably in some way touched upon by Stitch by Susan, whether it's classes, whether it's live streams, whether it's her podcast, Measure Twice, Cut Once. If you have any interest in quilting or even just appreciation for the art, we can't recommend her podcast, her social media, especially her Instagram. The work that she does is incredible. And yeah, she's been a longtime sponsor of the show right from the very get-go, and we're very grateful. 2 years in.
And the other sponsor of the show is your employer, my older brother, Mallory Smith, and Northern Truss in Fort St. John, where you can get all your flooring and your roofing needs and your metal siding and your metal roofs and any such hardware. Yeah, you sell metal, don't you?
Metal roofing, not siding.
It's the same stuff. You can get siding too.
Okay.
I only know because I made the spreadsheet that has the database with all the part numbers in it, so therefore I know that. And you can get that all from Northern Truss in Fort St. John, 250-787-3033. Yes. And
there you go.
As for Mallory, he'd love to talk to you for like 3 hours straight because he has nothing better to do with his time. So phone Mallory and talk to him. I give you the cell number, but everybody has the cell number and he doesn't answer it. So phone the office and Dave will put you through, and then you have to talk to Mallory. You can't get out of it.
You joke about him talking the hind leg off a donkey for 3 hours. That's the reason I was running so late. After work, I sat down and chatted with him, and we got chatting about Graham and all this stuff. And then I looked down at my watch, I'm like, oh my God, it's like 6:40. I got to go.
Maybe he's tuning in with the 4 people watching. Hey, those of you who are watching, say hi in the chat. We'd love to talk to you.
Just to be clear, I'm not complaining. I love that conversation. I learned so much about Graham that I didn't know. So I'm happy with it. No complaints.
So yes, so the show this evening it's sort of a reminiscing of our history on the Will and Dave show. And some of the good times, the rougher times. We tried to do a Christmas show where we did
I'm still mad about that.
Where we were going to take an awful Christmas movie and do a critique of it. And so we found one that we thought was in the public domain, and it turns out it was one of our few copyright strikes was because of that. And they shut us down in the middle of the stream. Thank you, Google.
Yeah. Thanks
for
Google.
all your love. Some high spots, Will?
High spots
for you in the show? Yeah.
Let me think. As contentious as it was, I really did enjoy last week. Like, I think last week was, that's the word I'm looking for, just a prime example of our ability to
vehemently disagree.
Yeah, we had that vehement disagreement. We were very passionate about the whole thing. And at the end of it, you literally texted me. And the first thing that we texted about was, hey, I think we might have gone a little bit hard and hurt somebody else's feelings. We should check up on that person and make sure that we didn't overdo it. There was no animosity between us. Like,
right.
Any aggression we may have shown was over. As soon as that discussion was over, that was the end of it. I take great pride in being secure enough in my relationship with you that I can talk about those things and not fear some sort of reprisal outside of disagreement, obviously. Like, that's inevitable and part of the process.
Well, and for me, I guess it's knowing that I can do this and turn you off of the screen and you can do nothing about it. And I don't do that very often because I like having you on the screen with me, but I hold the power and I don't have to exercise it because we really do get along. I don't think I've ever muted you on purpose.
I don't think so. No.
So yeah, so I think, over the years, the 2 years that we've been doing this, it's been good. We haven't made a huge audience, which is bad. So those of you who are watching, share, like, subscribe, hit the doobly-doo. Is that what you said in our...
Well, no, you put links and references in the doobly-doo.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we need references, we try to throw them in the doobly-doo. I'm shamelessly ripping off of another YouTuber that I can't remember.
Oh,
picked it up
okay.
in
I've
my
never heard
younger
it
years.
before. And there aren't a whole lot of shows out there who have the disagreements, and it really is not about winning
Right.
you over or me over to each side. It's about having the discussion, sharing our points of view, and going, okay, that's it, and move on.
It's funny you bring it up like that. That's something that actually has been weighing on my brain a lot lately. Is part of, I don't know if it's necessarily because of a byproduct of doing this show with you, but I tend to be very critical of my own kind of ideological pool that I reside in, more progressive circles and whatnot.
Mhm.
And part of the thing that's happening right now in a lot of in a lot of progressive online discourse is there's a lot of talk about debate bros on YouTube, who are guys who are supposedly super progressive, and they tend to do live stream debates and talks and jazz like that. But they have such a drive to win, to prove that their idea is the best idea, that so many times they overstep the bounds of even what the beliefs that they actually espouse, but all in the interest of winning, of
Right.
crushing somebody else, of being the victor, as opposed to actually finding some new information or meaning or understanding about something. And I don't like that. And I like the fact that we don't have that here. We get to exist in this space of disagreement, but without being antagonistic.
I would agree. I would think that there is obviously are those on the right. You look at the Ben Shapiro's or the Glenn Becks or your favorite Matt Walsh, who it is all about you have to agree with him or you're wrong.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree, you're a horrible person.
Mhm.
And I can hear your cat, by the way.
Yeah, he's very loud. I think that a lot of these, again, to use the term debate bros on the left, I think they are in many ways not a response, but a reflection.
No, I think that's fair.
Of the Matt Walshes and Ben Shapiro's, because people on the left may have felt that, hey, this is a market that we haven't tapped into, of this very aggressive intellectual juggernaut, or apparent intellectual juggernaut, and they wanted to fit in that space. I don't think it's a good space per se. I don't think it's necessarily a healthy space. I mean, it makes for good clicks and good YouTube shorts, but is it actually helping to move a discourse forward at all?
And honestly, there are those who looked at our show last week and weren't sure if this was a good. Well, I don't know. I don't know how to word it. It was heated last week, and I think everybody who watched the show knew that. And in the moment, I don't know that it looked healthy. It's in the aftermath as you realize it wasn't about I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
Or you're right and I'm wrong. It's about, hey, here's our viewpoints. And we're very adamant about our viewpoints, except it's okay to not agree with each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. There's a lot of back end. Yeah, no, absolutely. When I sit back and try to think of it from an outside perspective, it is obviously very different watching it from an outside perspective, because people may have different meters by which they judge how aggressive a conversation is. Like for you and me, that type of conversation is probably on the upper end of how aggressive we might get talking to one another, but nowhere near how we would talk to each other if we were genuinely angry at the other person. You or I are okay with not like we don't enjoy raising our voices at each other, but it's not something that, say, scares us or immediately hurts our feelings if the opposing person raises their voice or curses.
Right.
For other people, that may be that their mileage may vary and how they interact with people may be different.
And maybe I don't like it when you curse because it hurts the algorithm.
Yeah. Maybe it would behoove us to have some sort of disclaimer at the end of a really heated episode like that, being like, hey, This is us getting along, just getting along very enthusiastically. This isn't a
I don't
relationship deteriorating. This is just
I don't
how we
think
function.
that one of our viewers felt that way last week.
That's very understandable. Like I said, that's the onus is on us to
Yes.
divulge how that is not so unhealthy or
Right.
unprecedented within our relationship.
So with that in mind, you had a topic you kind of wanted to touch on this week, and I derailed it with the anniversary show, although it is a good
It does tie in.
viewpoint into that. It does, yes.
It ties in more directly than I let on when you initially mentioned that it was the anniversary show. So recently, I've started going attending church services again. I did kind of here and there, but I've been going pretty regularly now for a few weeks to a couple of different churches here in town. Don't worry, not religious. I'm still as firmly agnostic as I was however long ago. But I found that my reasons for going were twofold, and one of them is largely inspired by our show. The one is just because I think that engaging in larger communities of people is just good for my mental health. I'm not a very sociable person as a rule. I don't get out much, but getting out, interacting with people is just good for me, even if it may not feel like it at the time. I think it's just generally good for my mental health. But the other one is that I find that being agnostic, I don't agree with a lot of what is spoken about in church. I don't agree with many of the practices, many sermons that I listen to, I don't necessarily agree with. But I find that if I only view it from a distance, from way outside, I find that contempt starts to kind of creep in around the corners. And I don't like that. I don't like feeling contempt for people. I can feel contempt for groups and ideologies, but I don't like feeling contempt for people. And feeling contempt for people was starting to creep in. I didn't like that. So my original plan was I'm just going to go to church and spend time with people. And I started liking that a lot. I enjoyed just interacting and reminding myself that they're people like you or I, and I don't agree with them a lot of the time, but I still like spending time with them. I still like having a cup of coffee with them, saying how you do in the morning.
And
I mean,
coffee's
hey,
free at church, so that's not a bad
coffee's
thing.
free and the music's generally pretty good too. I get a free little mini concert every morning. That's kind of nice too.
It is.
There's a lot of
So I will
benefits.
come at that from a different angle a little bit, although I think you might agree with this. Is one of
Mhm.
the healthy things in church is that they're the goal of most churches is healthy. It's helping people. It's for good reasons.
Mm.
If it's for reaching the lost, it also is for working with the needy and helping those
Mhm.
who are less fortunate. And so as a rule, when you get religious organizations, almost universally of almost every religion, their
Mhm.
focus is not usually on the rich and famous. It's on the lost and the hurting and the widows and the
It should
orphans.
be. Certainly should be. And I would say
And
most of the
that,
churches around here, I think it is.
yeah, and that is a healthy thing in any organization.
Mhm.
If your goal is to be an asset in society and not a detriment,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
leech, if it's a good thing. And I think that maybe you see a bit of that in the churches in your town.
Oh, definitely.
Is it's good people. It is not.
Mhm.
It isn't horrible people.
Yeah, and like while I don't generally have a love of missions as a rule, I like local stuff in the sense that I like it when churches put on community things, maybe volunteering to help out at Sally Ann's or any number of things when they have any kind of community outreach that provides resources and information. Even if I don't completely agree with all the resources, like let's say this isn't a case, I'm not using a specific case as
Yeah.
all hypothetical, but let's say that a church has like a women's recovery program or something for women who come out of abusive relationships. Yeah, I don't agree with some of the things they're probably going to talk about when they come at it from a biblical point of view. Sure. But like the other 80 to 90%, yes, I want support. I want groups that they can fit into. I want them to find community. I want them to find solidarity. Those are all great things that you can find within those groups. And I don't want to discount the value that they may provide just because I don't agree with that last 10%.
Right. And honestly, I think anybody who has all the angles all covered
Mm-hmm.
and everybody agrees with 100% of what they do is a unicorn, and I don't think it exists.
Yeah, no.
So for you to look at a group and say, I agree with 80 or 90% is really good.
Yeah, I mean, that's throwing a number out there. Some groups it's less, some groups it's more. But yeah.
Right. Although I think in you saying, I look at 80% and I like that. I think that is the case of
Yeah.
any charitable organization. That if your audience
Yeah.
agrees with 60% of what you do,
Mhm.
it's a good thing.
Pretty much like people. Like if I can go to a
Yes.
church and get along with the vast majority of people and I don't get along with like a handful, I'm not going to let that handful ruin the entire experience for me.
Right.
I am sure there are people at this church that know me and have probably heard things about me and they may not like me. And that's
I
okay.
probably told them those things.
I mean, it's very possible too. And that's just
Let me
that's the way it
introduce you to
is.
my son, William the Turd Muffin.
You know,
Did you know what he was
okay.
like when he was 6?
This is gonna I don't know how to say this. I don't want this to come across as a negative. This is just a funny thing.
It's okay.
So when I was younger, I used to have a real chip on my shoulder about being referred to as Dave's kid. And everyone would be just like, "Oh, hey, you're Dave's kid." I'm like, Actually, my name's Will. Thanks." I used to get really bent out of shape internally. I didn't verbalize it a lot at the time, and I've gotten over that for the most part.
I'm
But
so
because yeah, because I look different now, because I have a big bushy beard and I buzz my hair
sorry.
down
I
and
have
everything.
more hair.
Yeah, most people don't immediately recognize me as Dave's kid. They're just like, "Have I seen you before?" And be like, Will Smith or William Smith, or I'm Will. And like, I swear I've met you before. Are you related to somebody? And I get a kick out of that. I get a kick out of that like pseudo anonymity. That kind of I'm in that sweet spot where they recognize me and they're friendly, but they don't know who I am. So I get to introduce myself fresh. It's
See, here's the easy answer.
perfect.
Say I'm Mallory's nephew.
I have been doing that actually. Now that I'm going to the church that he goes to, so that's what I've been saying. They're like,
It gives you
I
that.
talk to Mallory, and they'd be
gives
like,
that
"Do
other
you
side.
guys know each other?" And I'm like, "I've seen him once or twice." It's not like I spend 75% of my waking hours around him.
Yeah. And honestly, he probably at this moment in time, he knows a lot more people in your town than I do, as I've been gone for
Mhm.
over 10 years, 11 years I've been gone. So I don't know as many people
Yeah,
as he does.
I mean,
So-
it helps that
so-
he used to be on the board for the church and everything, so he's a gentleman in good standing, so to speak.
So answer me this, Will.
Mm-hmm.
As I obviously attend a church, I am a member of the staff at a church. I've been on the board
Mm-hmm.
of a church. And so I get the reasons why I think it's a good place.
Yeah.
Would you relate a little bit of your reason why, even though you are not in agreement with the religious side of it, you see value in going there?
For myself or for other
What do they offer?
people?
If you're only doing it for you, I'd say don't go because it's selfish.
Right. Well,
But what
this
is your reasoning? As I'm curious, actually, because I just learned about this after our show last week. We sort of talked about it, and I'm wondering,
Yeah.
why are you going
Um,
now?
Part of it is definitely selfish. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that and pretend that it's altruistic. Part of it is for me. It's just good for my health.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is also an avenue for me to find a place to volunteer. I like doing volunteer work, but I'm also lazy about my volunteer work. Like I have a hard time seeking out organizations and pouring into them because I am very scared of being tied to one thing expressly. Whereas helping out at a church that is a community funded program, I find it easier to kind of just slip into it. I don't feel obligated to volunteer per se, but I do feel a need to do it. So like part of the reason that I'm spending time at this church is they very clearly had a need for volunteers. And I'm like, I'm the guy you need then. All this being said, after I've had a conversation with them, being clear that they understand that I am entering their church as a functional agnostic, and so I don't want them to have expectations of me to partake in, praying over people and things like that, because I don't want to do that disingenuously. But outside of stuff like that, that is like outside of expressly things that involve the relationship with God, I'm happy to help. Like if they wanted me to sing and worship, I don't mind doing that. I'll put on a show. That's fine.
So let me ask you a leading question.
Okay, fire.
So all charitable organizations, if they're religious or not, all exist on the donations of those who support their cause.
Yes.
Will you put your money where your mouth is?
Probably not.
Okay.
Partially,
So
this is the other reason that I like giving my time and not my money.
right.
I look at or I used to look at it. I don't know if I can do this the same way I used to. I used to look at it as I'm quite willing to give 4 hours of my week to
Mhm.
volunteering at a church. This is when I was going to church.
Right.
Because if I give them money, I don't really have control over how my money is being used to benefit the church. But if I give 4 hours, 10% of my working hours as time,
Mhm.
I am providing, I am contributing, but I have direct control over how my contribution affects things. And so I don't have to worry about, is my money being used for something that I'm going to agree or disagree with?
And
I
I
do something with
get
my
that.
time. And it's not a perfect solution.
Right. Because I also know is that on the other end of that, if everybody looked at the causes and said, I'll give you time, no money, there would be no causes.
Exactly. But at
Because
the
they
same
couldn't
time, if everybody
afford to
gave money
exist.
and nobody gave time,
Right. So there is a balance. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And I just feel more comfortable with time. It's not to say I won't give my money. I'm more inclined though not to say tithe to the church. I would be more inclined to say if the church is like, hey, we have a need, a family in need, or a program that we're sponsoring in the city or something like that, I'd
right.
be more inclined to give my money to that directly as opposed to just putting it in the pot and allowing somebody else to do it. Not to
Right.
say that the church I'm going to is untrustworthy. I just have trust issues
Right.
when it comes to religious organizations and money. Can't imagine why.
Right. You and Jimmy Swaggart, we get along great. Well, I don't want to applaud you on your decision to go to church. It has nothing to do with that. And I'm one of the
Mhm.
least evangelistic people out there.
Yeah.
I do believe in God. I do believe in salvation. And yet I believe that it's a personal thing. And I think that
Hmm.
the Lord will reach whoever he wants to reach in
Yeah.
his own way. And so I don't have to persuade you to go to church. I know every time I've gone up, and I usually go to church when I'm up there,
Mhm.
you're there with us and you enjoy it, and you know the people
Yeah.
there, so they get along. So you've always been good that way.
Yeah. In
And
some
that's
senses, it's kind of a security blanket. Like it has that kind of feel where it's somewhere that I spent a lot of time growing up. I mean, going there all the time as a kid with you guys, and then all the
Mhm.
years that I spent volunteering at one when I was a believer.
Right.
It's a comfortable space for me. But oddly enough, I feel more comfortable going now as a non-believer. It's more awkward in a certain sense, but I feel more comfortable overall as a non-believer because I feel genuine about it. Because I don't remember a time in my teenage or young adult years where I didn't have, whether it was questions or guilt about my faith that I didn't
Right.
have, I didn't fully understand, and so there was always something that felt out of place. Now at
Right.
least I go in there with more understanding than I had when I was younger, and I like that.
Right.
It feels like a better place to be doing it.
Well, and I think as you are older and more mature, then yeah, it will
Older
happen.
at least. Older at
And
least.
more mature. You have to be more mature
Oh,
when you get
you.
older. It's
It's the
it's just a
law.
fact. It's a fact. Well, I don't want to go on this evening as this is our anniversary show, and we don't want to beat it to death. I just wanted to
Hmm.
get on, and I've enjoyed this, Will, with you for 2 years, and we're going to keep it going. We're not going to stop.
Mhm.
We've had some really awesome meetings, online
Mhm.
where we've had our guests on, and we are going to get more guests on this show because we've had some good guests.
Might even have some collaborations coming up in the future. We'll see.
Oh,
I got a few
are you
ovens in
talking
the
about
fire.
the blue collar Nazi,
I'm not
whatever
actually,
they
although
are?
I might have bumped into some ideas through them. It's not
Oh
with
my
them directly.
gosh. The blue collar philosophers. If you ever want to get your mind expanded in a horrible way, you can listen to William on the blue
Your mind
on the blue
expanded with a
collar
blunt instrument.
philosophers. It's a podcast. Are they also on YouTube or just podcast?
They're currently just a podcast, but they're planning on expanding into some form of video content. They haven't decided on
Oh
what yet.
man, my God, that is going
It's
to be
being
bad.
teased at. You
So
know
I
what?
will tell everybody that I listened to all of your first episode, hated every minute of it. I won't lie. I know both of your co-hosts. I can't listen to the other one that you did, and you've done one or
That's
two
okay.
more with them.
Just one
Did
more.
one or two more?
I've just done the two.
Just one more.
I was the first recurring guest. They're newer than we are. They've only been doing this for a couple of months, I think.
Well, I just, I look, Will, at what we've done together. I have admiration for you for sticking out with a grumpy old man, and it's been fun. It's been
It
fun.
has been. It's something that I look forward to. I find that when we have weeks where we both can't make it, or something comes in the way, that it feels like my week is out of sync, because I look forward to these both as a form of making content because I feel proud of the content we make, but also just as a good way to interact with you on a regular basis.
I don't know if that's healthy or not, but hey, I'll take it.
I think this is the best interaction we could ever ask for over distance, like we have.
That's
I
true.
think this is about as intimate as you can get at this level of distance.
And wrapping up, your
Mhm.
mother is coming up yet to visit you
Mhm.
for 2 months.
Yep.
For
I'm
all of
excited.
November, all of December.
Yep.
I may not be quite as happy with you every Friday night, knowing that you can go
Maybe
and have a coffee with your mom, and I'm
Maybe-
stuck here with a stupid cat.
maybe she can come adjust my lights for me one time. Just
Maybe
to bug you
not.
and be like, "Hey, Mom, can you adjust the lights for me?"
I just want to know you suck, William. I
okay.
don't like you
I'll-
anymore.
I'll cook her all sorts of fancy bougie things that I have no right to be cooking.
This will be the one show when we end in disagreement, and I am angry.
Oops.
So next week we will be on a Saturday night again.
Yes.
This has been a little bit of a shorter show. I hope you enjoyed it. This is the Will and Dave show, where disagreeing is encouraged, and even enjoyed, I guess, would be. I mean, it's okay to disagree and go home and say, I still like the guy I disagreed with. He's still a friend.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think enjoyed is the right word. Not necessarily in a pleasurable sense, but overarching sense. Like when you work out and it hurts, but you know it was good for you.
Ooh, okay. That's a better analogy. I was thinking of an enema where you feel better after it does its thing.
We'll stick with the working out bit. We'll still just stick with that. The less enemas, the better.
William, do you have anything you want to say to our audience before we let them go and rinse their minds out with some mental mouthwash?
Some eye bleach.
Eye bleach, ear bleach.
Yeah. Stay safe, folks. Have a good night. Don't die.